Question 10. The monthly payment R on a loan varies directly with the amount borrowed P. The monthly payment on a 5-year car loan is $20 for every $1,000 borrowed. Part A, find a linear equation that relates the monthly payment R to the amount borrowed P for a loan with similar terms. Part B, find the monthly payment when the amount borrowed is $20,000. This is a question that we covered basically in section, or a type of question we covered in section 1.7. So if you go to the 1.7 notes, which begin on page 21, you'll see that we have these two concepts of direct variation and inverse variation. So if it's direct variation, then your relationship will be y equals k times x, where y and x are variables and k is going to be some constant. We don't know what k is right now. It might be 2, it might be 7, it might be 1,000, it might be 1 over 20. We don't know, but we will find out eventually. On the other hand, you have the concept of inverse variation. Inverse variation means that as x increases, y decreases, or vice versa. The higher y is, the lower x. If you increase y, x decreases. That's different than direct variation, where as y increases, so does x, and vice versa. The formula for inverse variation is y equals k over x. Once again, y and x are variables, and k is some constant, which usually we do not know right out the gate. So for this problem that we were having, it mentioned that our two variables vary directly with each other. The monthly payment R on a loan varies directly with the amount borrowed P. Okay, now for some of you guys might be able to look at word problems and kind of like take out the essence of it and be able to solve it. For word problems, one thing I always recommend is to actually write down the information. The idea of a word problem is that you're going to get what's in words and you're going to convert it into math language. And sometimes you might have to convert it back, going from math language back to English, which we'll actually see at the end of this problem. So let's start with that first sentence. Let's go sentence by sentence. We're not going to take everything at the same time. The first sentence, the monthly payment R on a loan varies directly with the amount borrowed, which is P. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is just write down my variables. R stands for the monthly payment. And so whenever I see the words monthly payment in this problem, I can replace it just with R. And then the amount borrowed is P. That's what that first sentence is telling us. So if you're wondering kind of like how do I know to do this, I'm just gathering information right now. I don't actually know exactly where this problem is going to take me. I'm not trying to solve it all at once. I'm not trying to get the solution right away. I'm just writing down relevant information that might be useful. And of course, it's good to highlight it, that way it stands out. Okay, now let's reread that question and let's translate that into math. It says the monthly payment R on a loan varies directly with the amount borrowed P. So I'm going to convert that to math language. Instead of saying the monthly payment R, I'm just going to say R. Varies directly, which we'll get to in a minute. We're still halfway still in English, with the amount borrowed P. So R varies directly with, again, wherever you see the words amount borrowed, you can just replace it with the variable P. All right, now we talked about what varies directly means. That means R equals P times some constant, K, which again, we don't know yet. Again, we haven't solved the problem, but just looking at that first sentence, we've gleaned a lot of information. We know what R is, we know what P is, and we know that there's a mathematical equation, R equals K times P. Let's look at that second sentence. The monthly payment on a 5-year car loan is $20 for every $1,000 borrowed. Okay, so again, we have English, and we're trying to convert it as much as we can into math. So the monthly payment on a 5-year car loan is $20. The monthly payment is R, So this is just saying R is 20 for every $1,000 borrowed. And again, the amount borrowed is P. So R is 20 when P equals 1,000. And if you're wondering, if you kind of notice, we can actually use that information and we can actually plug it into the equation that we have, and we can probably find K. So we might as well do that. So let's plug in R equals 20, P equals 1,000. Let's see what happens. 20 equals K times 1,000. All right, divide both sides by 1,000, and you get K equals 20 over 1,000. You can divide both top and bottom by 20. And that gets you 1 over, I'm doing this in my head, 1 over 50. 1 over 50. And so what we got is that K is 1 over 50. Again, that's a nice thing to know, so let's highlight that. So we know that R is the monthly payment, we know that P is the amount borrowed, we know that R equals K times P, and we just found out what K is. And so we get R, sorry, wrong pen. We get that R equals 1 over 50 times P, which is probably going to be very useful when we do this problem. So again, this might be something that we want to highlight. R equals 1 over 50 times P. In other words, if you give me the amount borrowed, I could divide it by 50, and it will give me the amount that I have to pay monthly. Okay, now let's move on to part A. We haven't even moved on to the question yet, but part A. Find a linear equation that relates the monthly payment R to the amount borrowed P for a loan with similar terms. So again, one nice thing that you might want to do is convert this a little bit into math, make it a little bit less wordy. So we can say find a linear equation that relates the monthly payment R, so that relates R to P, which is the amount borrowed. That's what they're asking for, a linear equation that relates R to P. And we found that in the previous question. So we actually already have the answer. This is a linear equation that relates the two. And so we're done with part A. All right, now let's move on to part B. Find the monthly payment when the amount borrowed is $20,000. Again, at this point, you might just be able to go right away and just, plug in the numbers. What you're going to do is you're going to plug in, you're going to set the amount borrowed, which is P. You're going to set that equal to 20,000, and you're going to find R. But, again, if it's still something that you're not able to sort of see right away, you can always switch this into sort of more mathy language. So instead of saying find the monthly payment is R. We know that from the very beginning. Find R when the amount borrowed is $20,000. The amount borrowed is P. We wrote that down at the very beginning. When P is $20,000. This is what they're asking us. Find R when P equals $20,000. We have the equation from part A. We can just plug in P equals $20,000 and find R. So again, you see when we convert this sort of like piece by piece, it makes the whole thing a lot easier to handle, especially if you write down key details. 1 over 50 times 20,000. That ends up equaling, hold on real quick, I can do this in my head, I hope. 400 goes into there. 100 times about 400. No. Yes. 400. $400. Okay, and that would be the answer to that, but I want to do one more thing real quick, because we found an answer, but of course, what does that answer represent? So the $400, if we kind of go back to part B, we will pay $400 monthly when the amount borrowed is $20,000. So let's put that in the sentence. This is an important thing you want to do. When the amount borrowed is $20,000, the monthly payment is $400. And that is all there is to this question. So again, break each part down one by one, and this works for basically most word problems. So for this specific word problem, obviously it worked, but when you're working with any word problem, this is how you want to think about it. You know, it can be overwhelming. So just take pieces and try to convert them into some sort of like mathematical equation. And of course, it's nice to highlight things to remember what is what. You know, so you can find information neatly. If you don't have a highlighter, maybe you can box it, or you can write it in a different color, or you can include all the stuff here. Maybe include it in a box on the side. That way, you know, you can refer back to this anytime in the question, etc., etc. All right, that's it. Take your time. Make sure to kind of be thorough with this, and good luck.